way out of here, said the joker to the thief. There's too much confusion. I can't get no relief. All along, watchtower.
Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 11, Part A, Vanity Chats, the podcast where everyone is striving for what is worth having a fun discussion. Forgot that I wrote that last week. My name is Magellan, and I'm joined by a great pet of mine. It's Alan.
Meow, meow.
Oh, so cute. Oh, yeah.
I'm Melon, everyone. It's me, Magellan's cat.
It's my cat's name. And we're also joined by someone who is omens by name and omens by nature, I fear. It's old as your omens.
Hello to you both.
You're bringing grim portents of the future with you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I was bringing you grim portents of the last couple seasons of Farscape, so I think that's warranted.
True. That's your whole deal. Yeah. Well, we watched 2 more episodes of the 2018 series Vanity Fair for this week, didn't we? We did.
Yes.
This is where I announced that I didn't watch it at all.
And
Sorry.
I will bring you grim portents of the future of Vanity Fair. Because I am the only one among you that knows what the book is.
Oh, no.
I don't know if I can take any grimmer portents after what happened in these 2 episodes, but yeah. So we watched episodes 3 and 4, A Quarrel about an Heiress, and in which Becky joins her regiment. Both episodes were written by Gwyneth Hughes and directed by James Strong, and both were released on December 21st of 2018. Alan, can you tell us all what happened in episode 3, A Quarrel about an Heiress?
I can do that, sir. Thank you. In this episode, Becky has moved in with Matilda Crawley and seems to have a bright future ahead of her. However, war is brewing, which threatens the fortunes of the scheming social climber and everyone she knows. This has been the 10 o'clock news. So, I thought episode 2 was setting us up for like a very interesting local family conflict, marriage drama, the usual stuff. But this is a 7-episode show that takes place over several years. And it was in episode 3 that I realized, oh, they really meant like we're going to go places. We're not even close to done yet.
Yeah.
We're not settled. We have fully unmoored ourselves from the Crawley household. And it felt like this episode was on high octane. Like, all right, we just got to go. I don't know how fast the book deals through this stuff, but, further hiding the fact that this is supposed to be a sort of satire, I, again, will say that this feels like it's a speed run of a Regency novel.
Yeah.
It's just
right.
rush into all the good stuff. Like, let's get straight to marriage. Let's get straight to conflict, post-marital distress, etc., etc. It's great.
Yeah, I really thought we'd sit in Becky being Matilda's nurse for, longer. And instead it was like 5 minutes. And then the episode goes, okay, so anyway, she got married in secret and now it's really moving. Yeah, it's going quick. But I don't know. I liked this one, I think, a lot more than the second one. Despite that pace, I would say.
Owens, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it, and I do agree it was really fast paced, but there is very much a point to that. I feel like it's keeping it snappy, it's keeping it tight, so that we can honestly, like, again, get to the main source of the conflict. This sort of predates War and Peace, but I'm sort of thinking about war novels of that time talking about the Napoleonic Wars. And a lot of them are very much like, okay, you've gotten married, now what do your husbands go do? So we've done Pride and Prejudice, we've done Jane Eyre, and now we're doing War and Peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a good time.
I think I've started paying more attention to that intro because I noticed that the Thackeray character has a little sentence he says every episode. In this one, it's Becky's fortunes go up and then down. But is she downtrodden? No. And why would she? It's Vanity Fair. It's just
how do her fortunes go down in this one?
This one?
She loses all of Aunt Matilda's fortune.
Oh, because she goes off with Rawdon, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the whole like she could have married what's his face. Okay, yeah, I guess that's true.
But she's not sad about it because this is all part of her grandmaster plan. Is Becky the Joker?
Possibly.
Whatever Becky is, she sucks. She's really, really sucks.
Does she
especially
suck though?
In the second episode, she's awful. In the first one, not so much.
Like, Becky is a person who, if she had been given advantages in life, would have been a good person.
Right.
And she's just not.
Right.
Magellan and I were talking pre-podcast about like the trying to write villains, because I've been trying to get back into some creative writing, and I was thinking about recently, like, how do you write a good villain without it being, you know, their stake in life or their position as a minority or a disadvantaged person makes them hate the world and makes them a villain, and how that can be really problematic. But I definitely agree with you that, like, if she had an average upbringing and didn't have this, like, cartoonishly large chip on her shoulder, maybe Becky wouldn't be so ruthless and kind of callous, I'd say, in these episodes, because, you know, it takes empathy to not, for example, convince your husband to swindle one of your best friend's husband out of all of his money. Like, that requires a special kind of cold heart, I think. But that's mostly in the second episode. The other thing, just from the intro briefly, was that I've actually now listened to both the Jimi Hendrix and the Bob Dylan versions of All Along the Watchtower, and I can confirm, we're going to talk more about music. This cover is, like, not great. It turns it into a verse, chorus, verse, which is not what the song was, and it's way slower and doesn't, like, jump to the chorus. I know they're trying to do, like, a 30-second TV intro, and that's why they skip a lot of it, but both the Dylan and the Hendrix versions are very slow, and they build up, and they have great. It's mostly focused on the guitar. It's not a very vocal heavy song. It's just this Isabel Waller-Bridge version is not. This ain't it, Chief. And again, lyrically, it's not doing anything. I was telling Omens earlier, I really think they chose some of the music for this show, especially the licensed stuff, based on tone more than lyrics, which is always a bummer, because you always have space to interpret the lyrics of a song with the show that it's in. You know, that's like the classic way you use licensed music in a show. With
a period drama, and we keep saying this, but there was so much good popular music. Sea shanties are popular now.
Hell yeah.
Like, those are old, and there are folk songs, and there is popular music that you could have used, and it's so unnecessary for a period drama to use licensed music, and two, for it to be this bad.
Like, it's the bad version of the Knight's Tale thing, where, like, Knight's Tale uses Queen songs for their jousts or whatever, but it's good because that's just, like, the attitude of that movie. But
it sets itself out to be anachronistic. It's a show that is, or it's a movie that is anachronistic at its core. That's the point of it.
And I think that, you know, this show also, as we talked about last time, is doing certain anachronistic things as well, with Becky spiking the camera and stuff. You know, when she's like, "Oh, I have a secret plan right now. I'm making eye contact with you." The music feels of a piece with the type of show that would do that sort of thing. But to me, you know, in something like A Knight's Tale, the juxtaposition is fun, but here it doesn't really feel like juxtaposition. It feels like you're sort of putting two things on top of each other that are in tension with one another more often than they are. I think that looking in the lens thing works, and I think it's good, but I think the music is coming from that world and not really gelling with or really making meaningful commentary on the world of Vanity Fair. Just the opening song. I think other moments of licensed music or the sort of ambient music of the show are great, but that song, it doesn't really make sense to me.
The music does so much emotional lifting in the show. It's kind of like you can kind of hear it out if you really are paying attention. Like, this scene is supposed to be sad, and they knew exactly when to bring in the strings and bring in the piano when it matters. Like, there are times when I'm not even seeing actors perform, but I'm just getting the music, and it tells me what I'm supposed to think. And I think that in that case, it's successful, composition. But to get back to the plot, though, we are introduced here to Matilda's other servant, who she calls Briggs. I believe Becky knows her full name and tries to like be nice and call her by her full name. But she is a little bit jealous of Becky and is basically here just to be a intermediary as Becky begins her plan to leave Matilda's home. And meanwhile, Napoleon has escaped from Elba, as we knew was going to happen if we're paying attention to history. There's like a big newspaper thing that says Napoleon's escaped, and old man Pitt, who's just he's having a bad day. His wife and his dog are like, oh my god, Napoleon's escaped, and they're like in this long shot of the whole dinner table, and he's looking at the paper or whatever, and it says that he's escaped, and he's like, oh neat. It's just the wife is like half dead and the dog is asleep, and it's like, okay, I guess no one here really cares.
Yeah, I like that he's like so upset, and then the wife goes, who?
Huh?
Who?
I wonder, is there
That
an
was
explanation for, is it just because she's miserable because she's in an unhappy marriage, or
yeah, or maybe she's ill or something. I don't know, because
Miserable
later she
and ill.
yeah, because
the
later
deadly combo.
she trips on her dress and falls down the stairs, which I think indicates that she was ill in some way.
yeah, which prompts a big change with the Pitt family. But going back to Becky with Matilda, she's singing her to sleep, and she's showing us, she's kind of spiking the lens again, and Matilda's all like, I'm gonna die unloved and alone, and Becky's like, I don't care. Just
well, I think the emotional arc of that scene is more interesting than that, because it starts with Matilda saying, I'm cold, and Becky gives this look of ugh to the audience, and then she hears out Matilda, saying that she's going to die alone and unmourned and whatever. And I don't think that Becky really cares about Matilda, but you can see when she hugs her and Matilda's not looking at her anymore, she still has a look of concern, I think, about like herself a little bit there. And
It's very much a yikes look.
Yeah.
It's a yikes look. Yeah. Like, oh no, that could have happened to me. And I don't know if in the timeline that's before or after she has her secret marriage with Rawdon, but I think that makes her really, for a moment, reconsider sort of why she's doing the things that she's doing, because I think, she wants to be super rich like Matilda, but she doesn't want to be in this position where she's on her deathbed super rich, and the only person there by her side is, some social climber who doesn't actually care about her. And so I think that explains a lot of her characterization in this episode, that there's like, I think, more genuine emotion and genuine affection coming from Becky here, as opposed to in the next episode where she's sort of comfortable on the path that she and Rawdon are on, and she's kind of like pushing the boundaries a little bit and having fun with it, with her sort of like twisting men around her finger and stuff. But I think in this episode, seeing Matilda in that state, made her emotional and sentimental. And I think that's important to recognize. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that the show does definitely want us to parallel Matilda and Becky for a while here and think, oh man, that could be me, and I'm worried about that. But we jump a little bit later, and Becky takes all the whole family and gang, with Rawdon included, over to visit Amelia, George, and Sam, who we get to see again. And she's looking great, and she's having a great time. She's playing piano for everybody. All the women are vibing. They don't want to go outside. And then Matilda just drops like, this woman who is literally describes herself as a radical progressive, like in the show, just goes full racist to Sam. Like, you shouldn't let that guy in here. And it's a great moment. I want to link in the show notes an article I found where the showrunner of the series mentioned that she really wanted to focus on the fact that these characters are really racist, and that she didn't want to hide from that because she felt like it was unrealistic to portray it without that. Because the book doesn't go into this as much. But in that article, I also learned that Sam's full name in the book is a racist slur. They literally just call him, it's a slur it's now used as a racist slur. It's more used for black men at the time, and indentured servants and whatnot. But he doesn't even cry or try to be respectful. He just goes to the other room, and then Amelia's like, she can't talk to you like that, and he's like, she's the one who should be fucking worried. Like, just kind of asserts his power there a little bit, which I actually really liked. I don't think you see that very often. That, and there's a second moment. I think this episode is where you get all of the discussion of race mostly. The second one is mostly about contrasting British and French culture, but between this and then George's like proposed wife or whatever, wife to be, the show is like addressing it sometimes.
Yeah, I think we should dig into both of those moments to a greater extent. Because the exact line that Matilda says is, she says, I do wonder at your judgment at letting him loose on the porcelain, which is like, that is reprehensible. It's so bad. And yeah, he has this moment of like slamming the porcelain down, asserting himself in that way, but then not sort of, I think what you're saying is right, that he like, still ultimately is not fazed or harmed by her saying that, because he's like, whatever, it's a racist old lady. Yeah. The point is, we don't have the wine to serve to them. So I thought all the Sam stuff was really good. I don't know if you both had other stuff on the Sam stuff before we talk about George and the woman that his father wants him to marry, because I had a hard time parsing that whole scene, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating to sort of see how like this adaptation is handling the various views on like race at this time, because there were, and like in Austen's novels and in this novel, there are rich people of color.
Yeah, right.
And in many cases, class trumps race.
Mm-hmm.
But Sam is black and he's a servant. And servants are already have a reputation for stealing things. That's the reason The Butler Did It is such a popular murder plot.
Mm-hmm.
And it just adds another layer. There's racist mistrust along top of classist mistrust. And it's just at this, like, it's almost like too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder too if, like, how it intersects with our main plot, because it often feels like the characters don't want to think about it. And I think that partly comes from the fact that in the adaptation and the original, I'm sure they didn't dig into this stuff as much. So there just isn't material for them to pull from there. We're not going to get a scene where Becky like sits with Sam and is like, hey, so you and I aren't so different. Like, we're not going to get that because that wasn't in the original at all. And the episode's already really tightly paced, so it can't fit something like that. But what Magellan's referring to as the second major discussion of racism is after Becky's family goes bankrupt, George, his father,
Emmy's family.
Yeah, Emmy's family goes bankrupt. George's father forbids him from marrying Amelia, which becomes a whole huge plot. They're at dinner, introduces George to this new woman whose name I did write down and I did highlight, and then I deleted the Miss Rhoda Schwartz. Who is a black woman from Barbados, but of good means, and like dresses really well and speaks wonderfully, and she seems really cool. But George's perspective there is like, ugh, not only are you not letting me marry the woman that I care about, but you're telling me I'm going to marry this woman. And it's all on the paper. It's all on the page right there. It's not a very subtle thing that, part of the reason he feels like unhappy about this is that he's being told to marry a black woman. But it's also tied in with just he wanted to be with Amelia. Why aren't you giving me this?
Yeah, I found that scene really, really, I don't know. It was just such a rich scene, and there's a lot of different signals that George and his dad are sending to each other over the course of that scene. And that scene does a great job of just fully explaining to you that George has many reasons why he runs off to marry Amelia, and all of them are bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, his first and foremost reason is that he doesn't like the idea that he can't possess her anymore. Like, oh, she was always going to be mine, and now I'm told that I can't have her anymore. I'm not going to go along with this. Mm-hmm. The second thing, I think, is when he's overhearing the fact that Rod and married Becky, and he's like, well, I don't want to be alone and look pathetic. And then the third thing, if he had gone into that dinner and his dad had set him up with a woman that he found suitable, I think he would have forgotten Emmy in a heartbeat.
His plot would have gone differently, because as we know, George doesn't really care about Amelia that much on his own. He's kind of being pushed to that.
Yeah.
But I think that the show, through the music, through the cinematography, and through the performances here, does a great job of communicating that when George sees her, that's what's going through his mind, is this woman is a black woman that is not suitable for me. And that is, I just thought that was really well communicated in the show. Because it does that racial commentary, and then it does that commentary reflecting back on George of like, just in case you didn't know, he's a shithead.
Sorry, and this is interesting in light of episode 2 as well, with the Sedleys' racism towards Sam and them not wanting mixed race kids.
Right.
Mr. Osborne would like mixed race kids if they were wealthy.
Good point.
Whereas the Sedleys' racism is far more overt and a lot less swayed by that.
It's and it is a pretty complex moment, like you were saying, Magellan, to show Rhoda here. In the book, she's actually, I think they might have said this in the show, but she's confirmed in the book to be half Jewish, half Jamaican, which is doubly, like, you get a little combo of racism there and anti-Semitism. But at the time, that would have been a little bit more progressive to at least show a woman like that of means. Not much, but a little bit better than his peers. It's weird. It's such a weird thing thinking about how race is portrayed in this era of novels and how we think about it now. Like, this is clearly racism, but it's not the show doing that because it's from 2018. And as we know, we abolished racism in 2001 or whatever.
Yeah, when 9/11 happened, we were like, we don't have time for racism anymore.
Exactly what happened. Yep.
Omens is making a good point, I think, about contrasting Mr. Osborne with the Sedleys when it comes to how they're prioritizing race versus class, because. And I think that's just telling about the fact that those distinctions are not entirely set in stone in this society for whatever reason. I don't know if it's just that, since the abolition of slavery in England is in the recent past of this period of time or what it is, but it seems like the society is still sort of trying to sort out and figure out okay, do we hate poor people or do we hate people of color, or how do we rank those things?
¿Por qué no las dos?
And Mr. Osborne, I think this further characterizes him as like, all he cares about is money at the end of the day. That is literally the only thing that he cares about is wealth. He does not care about race or about anything like that. And interestingly, the Sedley folks, as Omen said, all they care about, or the thing they care about most, is race. And it just makes me wonder sort of like, how are they making those particular decisions? How are people in the society deciding what to prioritize over the other? And I think the answer is that they don't have an answer to that yet.
Yeah, very much so. The sort of racialized hierarchy in the UK sort of switches from like very white supremacist anti-black focus to a very white supremacist anti-Indian focus from the time they lose their colonies in the Caribbean until the sort of colonization of India.
Bringing it right back to Joss and his curry.
Yes.
Tikka masala is imperialism food.
Yes, it is imperialism food. It's delicious, delicious imperialism food. And so is kedgeree, which is another popular dish of the time.
Yep.
And it's just a fascinating juxtaposition for me, because we're in the sort of in-between of black people are bad and Indian people are bad. They kind of both are not advantaged by this society, but we don't know how to rank them yet. We haven't invented that system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So everyone's just kind of making their own decisions based on their own biases.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings it back to what so much of these episodes are about, which is people seizing an opportunity immediately, not thinking very much about it, and just leaping headfirst into judgments, assumptions, whatnot, especially the men of this series. I think you could write a really fascinating piece about sort of like the role of women in Vanity Fair, because while Becky is definitely a strong female protagonist, and the way that she manipulates others is very hard to stomach, but the way that men think that they own her or have control over her is still fraught with as much sexism as is going around with everyone else. Because, I mean, definitely. When you mentioned earlier that Lord Pitt's wife dies, the moment he finds out about it, he isn't
gleefully
sad.
hops in his carriage and he's like, let's go.
It is time to not only talk to, but immediately propose to Becky and be like, yo, Becky, I've always loved everyone. Multiple times in these episodes, you can hear someone go, I love you. I've always loved you. I never said it before, but this is the moment where I'm saying that. Every moment I've looked at you, I've thought about you. And it's like, no, you didn't. You're lying. You're just horny and want money. Like, come on. This is a moment I think that does somewhat re-intersect with the book. As I understand it. And when she's like, her immediate defense, which is a common defense used by women who are being preyed upon, is to be like, I'm married. And then he says, if another man, or I've been proposed to, and he says, if there's another suitor with a better offer, let me see the whites of his eyes.
Yeah.
Just turbo masculine, like, I'm going to fight the next guy. I have more money than the guy that proposed to you. And she says, no, it's Rodden. And then, again, seizing an opportunity. Even she's the one also seizing opportunities and says, Rodden, we're getting married right now. Let's go. And it feels like it's a montage out of like a dream sequence where in the span of like 30 seconds, we go from, we should get married. He goes, what? And she's like, right now. He's like, okay, wedding, proposal, wedding, carriage out of the church, and we're moving in together in like 30 seconds. It's incredible.
So was that I thought that was a flashback to, did that happen right after he proposed to her that she went and married Rodden, or was that a flashback?
I understood it as having happened right after, but it's so fast that maybe it happened sooner.
Okay.
Do you have a take, Omens?
I believe that almost every episode of this series is about a year or two. Mm-hmm. Because, again, it's these novels are being published weekly.
Yeah.
And or maybe even monthly. And there is some sort of expectation of a lengthening of time in these books, and it's a 14-year plot. Or 18 or almost 20 years, 18 years, 1814 to 1832.
And what's fascinating to me that also brings to question like the timing of this is that Matilda and Briggs get a letter from Becky who's like, by the way, I married and I left. And Matilda's like, no, she didn't. She's downstairs. Like, that means that she did all of this so quickly that Matilda never noticed that Becky, like, it happened in a day. It happened overnight. Which is remarkable.
Well, I thought, I mean, it could have definitely happened after the fact of him proposing, but I thought, because she has a conversation with Rodden in bed where he's like, did you regret marrying me when he proposed to you or whatever, when you could have been the lady of the house? So I think it just adds some ambiguity to her reaction to Sir Pitt when he proposes, and she's very emotional and is crying. So you could either read it as like, that's the moment when she realizes she wants to marry Rodden, if it's happening afterwards, and she runs off and does it. Or you could read it as her being like, fuck. Oh, this would have been a really sweet deal. But I married that other guy and committed to that plan. And that plan is now going to be even harder because of this. I think
it's the latter, because she is wearing the same outfit in the beginning of the episode as she is during that flashback. And there's already been a couple of costume changes before the proposal. So but I think we're supposed to believe that she got married to Rodden like at the beginning of the episode, and that's when she was hopping into the carriage.
Like
and that's
that
what they
day,
did.
earlier that day or something.
And then they come back. And then it's only when Sir Pitt finds out that she actually tells Matilda.
This brings us to an
Yeah.
arc of this show that I'm really enjoying, which is Rodden and Becky as this like chaotic devil duo of just like they'll betray anyone,
Yeah.
they'll sneak in and
Yeah.
out of every apartment before they have to pay rent. They're very fun together, and I think this portrayal kind of like suggests that their love is at least somewhat earnest. I know there's a lot of discussion in literary circles about like what did Rodden and Becky actually love each other and how sincere is that romance. But I think if you're going to show so many scenes of them in bed together, being personal and honest, correcting each other's grammar, she calls him booby, all of this suggests to me that there is something real going on there. What did y'all think?
Very much so. I definitely agree that their love is as real as Becky's affections are going to get.
Right,
It might have been
right,
fake in the
exactly.
beginning. It might have been advantageous in the beginning, but I really do think she loves Rodden and that they match each other in chaos energy, and she appreciates that. She wants somebody who is able to keep up with her, and no one else has been able to keep up with her and has been expecting something different from her. Whereas Rodden, Joseph Sedley, would have just wanted a perfect little wife.
Yeah.
Whereas Rodden is very, very okay with her just being herself and doing what she wants and flirting with all the men and playing all the cards.
Literally, well, he does a lot of playing the cards later, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Becky does her fair share of cards.
I definitely
For sure.
Yeah, true. I found their relationship. I was glad that they got together so that we could spend these 2 episodes exploring what that relationship is like. Because I totally agree that I think the fact that Becky didn't kiss him or get with him in the last episode shows that she maybe wanted to do that, but was preventing herself from doing it because it would mess up her schemes. And she wanted to keep all of her schemes going at once. And then the fact that she commits to marrying him is her committing to one scheme, which has a romance to it and also has a scheme to it.
Yeah.
Right. Like she's still playing the grift. It's just that baby, you're my favorite grift. You're the one grift for me. This is the grift I'm going to do.
Yeah, can we grift together? That would be so cute. Let's go on a grifting date. Babe. Let's go on a
Cooperative grifting.
Like she's definitely the kind of person who would watch Bonnie and Clyde and be like, "That's so romantic."
Oh my god, goals!
You know
And she
what I mean?
does not watch the ending.
That's what she right, right. And I think, like we were saying last time, with him, she is the closest to her genuine self. But the thing that starts to emerge is that as Rodden sees more of just how devious she can be, it makes him uncomfortable. Like the moment where she's coaching him through the letter that he's going to write to Matilda, and she helps him to kind of craft this like very flowery language. He sort of pauses and he's like, well, this doesn't sound like me. I don't know that I would write like this. And she's like, oh, okay. If it sounds like you'll just say, thanks for the pie. Can I have some money or something like that? And Matilda, when she reads the letter, makes a comment of, oh, Rodden didn't write this. He's never written me a letter where he hasn't asked for money. And I think what that says about Rodden is like, he is a player to a certain extent, but he's entirely transparent. Like everybody knows what his game is. Everybody knows that he wants Aunt Matilda's money. Everybody knows that he likes to carouse with women. And Becky saw that in him and enjoys that about him. But Becky is someone who is much harder to read and much less transparent. Yeah. And so I think what he's starting to realize is like, oh, there's so much more to her ability to do this than me. I'm like kind of a shitty guy, but everybody knows exactly how shitty I am. But with Becky, it's like, who knows what she could do? And especially in the second episode, he starts to be like, hey, you danced with like every guy here.
I went home with you, babe, but I went home with you. You know that. Becky and Rodden are the type of couple you see on Twitter, or the type of person that people ask for on Tinder, where they're like, I want somebody who's in their bag and has full financial support of themselves and doesn't need me. And I'm like, wait, does nobody want to like be in a loving relationship at all?
Right.
I mean, like,
right.
Rodden, really likes Becky's independence because it means that he doesn't have to provide for her.
Yeah, 100%.
That he can go live his life and she can go live hers and they're perfectly happy. And quite often, like I think about, when you think about like Twitter relationships, I'm thinking about Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer.
Yeah, honestly,
although that's
kind of
probably
accurate.
Oh my gosh.
Although that's probably less like accurate now.
They are no longer together.
They're no longer together. Anyway, it's just really, like, it's interesting that Becky kind of flies in the face of the trope of a woman that needs you to provide for her, and Amelia is definitely a woman who needs you to provide for her, and wants to be loved, and wants to be cared for. And George just doesn't like that, which I think is gross.
Yeah. Well, just the kind of final thing that I would say about Rodden, and then I want to talk about George, just this fucking guy. Let's just get into George. But I think you're right to an extent, Omens, that like what Rodden likes about Becky is her independence and that he doesn't have to provide for her. But I think it's that he thinks he likes that because, you know, when she smokes the cigarette, he's like, whoa, wow, you're like a dude, but you're a chick. This is awesome. And then as their relationship goes on, and there are moments where her actions or just the way she is puts his masculinity at threat, he starts to not like it. When he feels that she's just a better speaker than him, he kind of has this look of like, oh, okay. Or when, again, in the second episode, when she's flirting with other dudes and he's feeling emasculated by that, I think it's just an interesting study in Rodden as this guy who can't really take what he dishes out. He can't really take the treatment that he sort of submits women to.
All of these sad men cannot take what they dish out.
Yeah, 100%.
Right,
every
exactly.
goddamn one.
Exactly.
And that is, you've hit the nail on the head there.
So can we talk about George?
Of course.
Another one of these sad, awful men. What's up with George? What do we think about this guy?
He's the type of person
run into Amelia.
He's the type of person who has had everything in life handed to him and is very upset when that does not happen.
He's literally... Go ahead, sorry.
Pardon. He wants to have Amelia and have money.
Yes.
And not have to love her. And, like, you can only have two of those things.
He said, pick 2 of 3, have Amelia have money and be successful. And he's like, no.
And don't love her.
But, like, okay,
oh my God. You can
either have money,
yeah. Go ahead.
have Amelia, or have a wife you don't love. Pick 2.
Yeah, there you go. And he's like, no, I refuse.
Right.
I decline. Well, you get nothing then, sir. As Willy Wonka once said, you get nothing.
Yeah, I'm going to pick none and be mad. Right. I'm going to pick none and be angry about it. And I feel so bad for Amelia in this episode where Dobbin buys her piano for her. Is that this one?
We jumped over the auction scene, but we can talk about it here. He buys the piano.
Yeah, so the Sedley house is getting their belongings are getting auctioned off because they go bankrupt, and on the way in, Becky's like, "Ooh, this elephant painting, buy it for me, Rodden, because it reminds me of Amelia's brother, and he was a great pet of mine." Which
got it,
which sucks. And he's like, cool. Like Rodden's kind of into that, like, yeah.
And in terms of and she also wants the piano for herself. Instead of giving it back to Amelia, she's like, oh, Amelia would want me to have it. She doesn't know Amelia. If she were actually friends with Amelia and loved Amelia, she would have done the same thing Dobbin did.
Right. Dobbin swoops in, buys Amelia's piano, and sends it to her. Like the true god tier simp that he is. And then it's sweet. It's a sweet thing. I'm not trying to be mean. It's sweet, but it's sad. Yeah. And he sends it to her, and she gets it, and she's like, oh, yay, George must have bought my piano for me, which is heartbreaking. And then you get this moment where she's reading her Dear John letter. We hear her saying her Dear John letter to George, because her dad's like, you can't be engaged to him anymore. and she's just at her piano by candlelight, like sobbing. I felt so bad for
Amelia takes a lot of shit in both of these episodes. I gotta say it. She just hashtag Amelia deserves better. I think is
too
the
good for this world. Too sweet. Like honestly, this is the kind of thing where I'm like, okay, you should find a nice little man, somebody of equal position to you, and settle down with the nice little man. And then it will probably all be fine for you. But of course, as this is Vanity Fair, that will not happen, and Amelia just, the idea that we need to dunk on Amelia any more than she's already been dunked on is incredible.
The book is about, it's sort of, I think of it like two combatants or two people, like these two bars going up and down, and it's like Becky's state in life and Amelia's, and they're always inverted. You know, it's always one gets better as the other one gets worse. They never grow together positively. And that's like the tragedy of the story is they want to. In the second episode, we see that they both sincerely want the other person to do well. It's just that often to make yourself successful, especially in a financially dependent world, you have to screw over some people. And sometimes that's your best friend, and it's awful. But that is, I think, one of the core tragedies of the whole story is like, Amelia has this love story where on her side, it's like, I know my dad, Mr. Sedley, is like mad because this guy ruined our family, but I love this man. I care about him. And maybe money doesn't matter. Like she's realizing that she's having that arc. And meanwhile, George is only still pursuing her because mother effing Dobbin is like, dude, you don't know how good you have it. You have to stick with this. I know you're ruining your family and your dad hates you now, but isn't it worth it for the girl that you love? Like you.
Yeah, why is Dobbin doing that?
Why is he the ultimate shipper of this ship when he is the one that really should be there?
He wants her to be happy.
Yeah, is that what it is? Yeah.
And like Amelia has never, ever stopped loving George, but she was also told to love him too.
Yeah.
She has this entire narrative in her head that she was destined to love George, and she's loved him since they were children, and loves everyone who is connected to her George. And George just could not give a single fuck about her, and I feel so bad.
Yeah. Is this show is this story positioning us for something where, you know, I don't know, George dies or something, and then Dobbin is there? You know what I mean? Like, is that where this is going to go? Is Amelia's with Dobbin?
Omens, don't answer this question.
Because I don't really want that to be...
I will move on. I will move on and say that we get to the actual wedding between George and Amelia, and if you can just do like a drinking game of every time Dobbin gets like dumped on in this, because everyone does the usual like kiss the bride thing, and then literally George has to dig the dirt in and go, you can kiss my wife, right? And then he kisses her, and it's the most like he wants to just die. He wants to perish in front of the church.
Oh, it sucks so bad.
Even Amelia's dad looks sad, and she's like, "This guy looks miserable." Oh my god, he's so sad. He's so put upon. I don't know what this man's fate is.
Almost everyone is miserable.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of pinpoint a single villain. I know it's easy to say like, well, Becky's the sort of the kingpin of this, or the queen pin, but it's a lot of people's faults and a lot of moving pieces, which I think is fascinating. That's what I love about period pieces, right? Is you just get to watch all these different pieces, some of which are literal real world history interfering with these love stories, which is just really great. Something I noticed in terms of cinematography here is Becky is brushing Amelia's hair the next day. They're talking about love. You see this in every one of these types of stories, but all of this is partly framed through mirrors. And you start to notice more and more mirrors throughout the episodes, to the point where in that moment that we're going to talk about in episode 4, we're like looking at a dresser with like 8 mirrors on it. Like it's all, I think the mirror is supposed to be a simple suggestion that like you are watching this filtered through something. You're watching this, she's lying, she's putting on an air, or something is dishonest here.
I feel like the mirrors indicate that Becky and Amelia are essentially...
and they're mirrors of each other.
Mm-hmm. And they're mirrors of each other. And it's incredibly, like, they're living each other's dreams.
Yeah.
The first thing Amelia says in the first episode is, I want to be married and happy.
And Becky's got that in episode 3.
Becky is married and happy, and
Yep.
Amelia is married and unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were both chasing things that... Well, Becky is chasing things people are telling her she doesn't want. And that she... But she knows herself well enough to be like, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. And Amelia is always constantly chasing things other people are telling her she needs to want, and then she's unhappy and she's not knowing why.
Right. She's unfulfilled. And, Amelia's father... This is... The back end of this episode is all of the, Dobbin sad times hours, right? Because he becomes sort of our POV as, Amelia's getting married, and her father is, he's like, Dobbin, he actually goes to him. He's like, Dobbin, please break my daughter up from George. And then he says, am I to have power over nothing in this world? And Dobbin, of all the characters, says, none of us have power over love, sir. Which is, folks, it's good. It's a good line.
Then he goes out on the stoop and just cries.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to go weep now.
Yeah.
And so Robin gets a 20-pound bill. It says, I wrote a 20-pound bill from Matilda. Something similar happens in the second episode. Is this her being you're out of the family, basically? Or what is the...
Yep.
Okay.
That's her being... It's a letter from her lawyer with a 20-pound banknote in it.
Yeah.
Saying, you're out of the family, here's your money. And George has the same thing happen in the second episode, but with 2K.
You're right. Which I don't know what the conversion is, but he does say, we bet with a couple hundred, so, 2,000 is literally nothing.
Yeah. But two people that have everything. To someone, essentially a servant in that time period would make about £8 a year. Oh. They're talking about 2,000.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of dialogue in the second one where they're Amelia's isn't that a lot of money? Why is he upset? So we should dig into that scene more when we do the second episode.
Yeah, definitely.
But this episode basically concludes. Becky is like, we should all go to war with you guys, right? We're going to go to war. And then Amelia's like, I guess. Amelia's just, again, being carried along by Becky's plotting. And it's raining. And then she's basically, I think, saying, let's go to war with them because she doesn't want to have to deal with, this property that they have to pay for.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we conclude on Dobbin just being like, I'm very happy for them both. I'm happy for the smiling bride and groom. Just cracking. So we end this one with Dobbin as our question mark, and the stakes are high, and I think that's what we got for this first ep. It's intense, but it gets more intense.
Yeah, and in terms of, do we want to do outfits now?
Do the outfits.
Yeah, let's go to the Omen's outfits corner.
So Becky's okay, so this is the episode.
This is Omen's
of
costume corner, by the way, just for the sake of the bumper. Omen's costume corner.
The first couple of things we see and outfits that Becky has in this episode are brand new silk pelisses. The first one is straight out of a fashion plate from 1814, which is a little bit too late or a little bit too early for this time period. I'm thinking it's around 1817 by now. Battle of Waterloo was when? Because that's where they're going. Okay, 1815, so it's only been a year. Overall, we're pretty good. We're really accurate. The red pelisse is, again, straight out of a fashion plate. It's trimmed with, I think, cream-colored silk, and then she wears the cream-colored bonnet.
Yes.
Becky usually wears a lot of blue.
It's a fire outfit.
And you see in the first couple episodes her common pelisse, the one that looks kind of janky, that she inevitably made herself, is a sort of blue-gray. Whereas here, she's all vivid purples, all bright whites. And the way her, her purple pelisse that we see that isn't the red one, you have the red pelisse with the white dress. And then right after, you have a purple pelisse, which is the name of the coat, with a gold underlayer, a gold creamy underlayer that matches her bonnet. And I like that the purple in that pelisse is shot with black, and we really sort of get to see Becky's darker side as she's becoming more and more nefarious. When she tries to play the innocent or the ingenue, she's always wearing bright white dresses that will catch the light in ways that make them look different colors. When she's flirting with George in the second episode, that dress is pink, but now they're mostly blue. And Amelia is also in a sort of blue-gray moment as she's dealing with the fallout from George's relationship. And do they get married in this one? I forget.
Oh, Amelia and...
Yeah.
Yes, that's the end of the episode.
They ran through.
Everyone gets married.
Amelia's wedding, Spencer, is absolutely delightful. I adore it. It's a lovely shade of pink, and I need it. But the sort of the way they're both dressed is really fascinating to me. Women wouldn't have gotten married in white in the Regency period, but Emmy is wearing her pink Spencer, the sort of one that we see her in the beginning, and then Becky is also wearing that old blue-gray dress to Amelia's wedding. I don't know why she would do that. It doesn't make any sense, and it honestly looks nasty, but we're gonna...
She has the big hat with that one as well, right?
She does have the big hat with that one. And the big hat is lovely. The hats are just absolutely beautiful. The buckram that's used for her cream-colored bonnet is slightly sheer. It's just perfect. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of rambling, but
this is your time.
So many of these are straight out of fashion plates or museums. And it's just an absolute joy to watch these bodies inhabit these beautiful clothes. And I love the way they used white as well, like I said earlier. When the way it reflects the light showed sort of even Becky and Amelia's kind of contrasts as they switch from pink to purple to blue, and the way they kind of play off each other. They're often in opposite colors, and I think that's really, really powerful in terms of symbolism in each of the scenes. Especially when Becky is, as I said, Becky is trying to flirt with George in the next couple episodes, and then she's pink. But when she's in the Crawley household, she's blue. But it's always the same white dress every single time.
Interesting. Very weird.
And that's pretty much all I have.
I love it. There is an outfit moment in the second one that I wanted to ask you about. It's she finally dons the outfit that is on the cover of the series, the like beautiful red, very chesty dress, which somebody comments on. But that was my one note about the outfits in this. This one I just was like really impressed with all the work, and it feels like they're putting in the effort where it needs to be. So
yes, very much so. And that dress is beautiful. It's kind of modern in terms of the way it's styled, but I love that they were able to stick with period silhouettes and hairstyles while still making all of the actresses really distinct and beautiful. They make them look like people, which is helpful in a period drama.
Right. And you have to humanize these folks as we tear them apart and build them back up.
Yes, exactly. So those are all my notes. Anyone have any stray things they want to handle?
I got nothing.
Okay.
No, I'm ready to talk about the next.
Oh man, let's freaking do it. We're gonna take a brief musical break, folks, and we will be right back to discuss In Which Becky Joins Her Regiment.
Outside in the cold distance, a wildcat did growl. Two riders were approaching, and the wind began to howl. All along the watchtower, Princess kept the view. All along.
Welcome back to Vanity Chats. The second episode that we watched this week was episode 4 of the 2018 Vanity Fair miniseries. It's In Which Becky Joins Her Regiment. Once again, written by Gwyneth Hughes and directed by James Strong. Magellan, tell me what happened and in which Becky joins her regiment to
Well, in this episode, George refuses to apologize for his marriage to Amelia. I love her. And his father cuts him off from the family and his inheritance. All the friends set sail for Belgium, where Becky makes use of every opportunity to advance in society. Okay. What did we think of when Becky joins her regiment? It's her regiment. It's not anybody else's. It's hers. What do we think?
Good shit. Good episode. Really good episode.
Done. End the podcast. Done. Thanks everyone for listening.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
I really enjoyed this one. As I said, like in the discussion of the last episode, there's a lot of meat and a lot to unpack and a lot of symbolism here, and I really enjoy it. And this is a really tightly plotted, thematically resonant miniseries, and I'm very excited to discuss the rest of it with you. What struck y'all?
Yeah, I was emotionally invested in this episode. I found myself often yelling, like to the detriment of my parents, who were like, "Why are you yelling at the TV again?" And I was like, "Because Becky lied again. She can't keep doing this." I was super invested in this minute to minute, every second of it. This episode featured my first time tearing up at Vanity Fair. So I'm curious if in our discussion either of you two can guess where that happened. But it's just the more speed, more trauma, more drama, more pettiness, everything turned up to 11. This show is firing on all cylinders here. John, what you got?
It just made me upset. I mean, I think it's a good episode. But I was just so bummed out watching the whole thing and you know, how they did my girl Amelia, how they did my guy Rodden. I mean, come on. Everybody's so sad in this one. Bum me out. But you know, it's good. I think it's a much needed moment in the story to, you know, kind of show you like Becky is flying on wax wings closer and closer to the sun, and we start to see that melt and fall apart a little bit at the end of the episode. So I think for that reason, it's like narratively a very strong episode.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and go through scene by scene, and then you guys feel free to like interrupt if there's a part that you really want to shout out or dig into. Because like we said, this is a pretty dense one. And we should have expected that it was going to be spicy when Thackeray at the beginning says, "Tonight, Becky finds a new use for old friends." You're like, I love how nakedly honest the narrator is about like, yeah, this is her game to play, and it's her regiment, like you said in the episode title. So she's trying to get Rodden to find work because she wants him to have more money, and they have to sneak out of their apartment so that they don't have to pay rent. It's all very cute. We already talked about these two, about Rodden and Becky being charming together. I thought it was fascinating. We jumped to George's father, who's still mad and is so certain that his son will come back that he leaves out the dinner plates every night for George. And he's like, he's going to come crawling back. He's going to run out of money. This resonated with me as somebody who knows, not myself, but who knows people who have moved out of their parents' house due to family issues and feel like they can't fully escape because the parent like is waiting for them to fail. You know what I mean? It's a bit realer than I expected out of all of this. But the boys are getting ready for war. You know, as we said before, Napoleon has escaped from Elba. Dobbin is depressed because some old gentleman is like, "Oh man, I'm not going to see my wife for a while, and it's so nice to have somebody who you love, and you're worried that you're never going to see them again." And he's like, "Yeah, I would be sad if somebody missed me." And
what do we think? Can I ask about the Dobbin of it all here?
Always, man, always. Go ahead.
So Dobbin goes to talk to George's dad to, I guess, mend fences. Is that his plan? Like, hey, you gotta, you know, your son is in love with her and whatever. It just, what was his plan here? Because it's him that leads to George's dad saying, "Okay, I'm cutting him off once and for all."
Yeah.
And I don't think that Dobbin did that on purpose, but did he do it on purpose?
I don't think he did do it on purpose. He cares about George, and he cares desperately about Amelia.
Yeah.
And Dobbin knows that Amelia will never, ever be happy unless she has George. And so it's very much a sacrifice for Amelia's sake that he makes, trying to get them back together.
Yeah.
And that is very much Dobbin's nature. He's a nice guy, and he would rather Amelia be happy than have her himself, even as the opportunity presents itself, to the point where he insults her father.
Right.
Yeah, I think
Well, that was
genuinely
George's
at this
father,
point
wasn't it?
realizes that this isn't going to work
yeah.
for me, so I'm just going to make her happy. And even though that's super
Yeah.
tense for him and super uncomfortable, he's doing it anyways.
Well, and there's the scene where he's talking to George's father. Yeah, so so that backs up what both of you are saying. Then there's a moment where he
God, the
where
proposal,
George's-
the accidental proposal.
Oh, yeah, well, I wasn't even going to say that bit. I forgot about that part. But yeah, there's this part where he's sort of waiting to talk to Mr. Osborne, and he accidentally leads George's sister on into thinking that he's going to propose to her, and she's so excited about it. That was a bummer. And then he has to be like, no, that's not what I'm here for. No. But then when he's talking to Mr. Osborne, and Mr. Osborne says something untoward about Amelia or whatever, and all of a sudden Dobbin's like, hey, no, you listen here, buddy. Don't you dare say anything about her around me. And the dad is like, all right, so pistols at dawn then, huh? I really thought that that's where we were going, that there's going to be a duel scene between Dobbin and Mr. Osborne, but it was not to be. I think he was being metaphorical, unfortunately.
Very much so. Like,
Yeah.
we are destined to agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but a duel scene with the two of them would have been really fun.
Incredible.
It would have been so much fun.
Osborne crosses out George from his will, which is permanent because he does it with a quill, and you're like, oh, that's real.
That's ink. That's ink.
That's ink.
Yeah.
And then we jump forward to Belgium, which I thought this was France for a while because everyone's speaking French, but the summary does confirm that it's Belgium. And George's dad brings him a letter that's like, hey, you're out of the family. Here's your whatever the word they have for this money. And it's £2,000, which, like he said, we were talking about earlier, is a little bit more than what they bet on an average day. So this is basically his dad telling him to F off and be out of the family for good.
Well,
And $2,000. I don't mean to interrupt you, Magellan. Go ahead.
No, go.
$2,000 is, well, the Bennetts and Pride and Prejudice have $200 a year.
Okay, so it's
And
money.
they are betting
Yeah.
twice what the Bennetts have, or they bet 104. He lost 140 to Rodden yesterday. He is wasting away betting what the Bennetts live on in a year.
Yeah, it's less like, 2,000 must be a little bit because it's what they bet, and it's more, holy shit, they bet a lot of money on these games.
Yeah.
Like more money than some people will see in several years' time.
Or in their entire lives at one time.
Right. And so, because there's this scene is just so like, George is the fucking worst of
beach?
any scene. Yeah, the scene on the beach where Dobbin brings the letter and he's like, whoa, it's not even from my dad, it's from the lawyer, £2,000. And then he storms off to yell at Dobbin, and everyone's like, Amelia says, wasn't £2,000 a lot of money? Why is he so upset? This doesn't make any sense. And then he has this exchange with Dobbin where he's basically like, I can't live on this. I can't live like you. I can't live without any entertainment or any fun. I want to keep my station in society. This is my life is over. Like, he's so mad that he only has a small little fortune instead of a huge fortune.
Spoiled rich kid.
It's awful. Oh my God, it's horrible.
Dobbin is like, oh no, now you're gonna have to live on the money that you earn from working.
Yeah.
Oh no.
He's like, I can't do that.
That's
I can't do that.
disgusting.
Who does
Stop.
that?
Well, I don't want to be with Amelia if it means that I can't have money also. This sucks. I don't want to be with her. And this is where Dobbin is like, you have the best girl in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that as an unbiased spectator. And I love you. I love you. And I think you guys are great for each other.
Yeah.
So Dobbin goes to cry in the corner. And, Rodden and Becky are dancing together. They're talking about dancing, how much they enjoy each other. It's all very intense. And we meet these new characters in this episode, the O'Dowds, and I'm curious what y'all thought about them, because I think they serve a cool purpose in terms of showing us what a couple dealing with, as Miss O'Dowd says, being an army wife. What happens when that relationship is just the adult and healthy and seemingly flourishing, because she is like, oh, my husband's going off to war. It sucks, like worrying that he's not going to come back, but my duty is to make him happy. I don't need to worry about my means in life. And you contrast that with Becky, who's like, huh? Work for my husband? Ew, sounds fake.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I would die for Mrs. Peggy O'Dowd.
She's wonderful.
I love her. She's wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful character. And you're right about them, like, actively portraying, like, a healthy adult relationship. They might not necessarily be, like, passionately, romantically entangled, and they might never have been. But this is a settled love that they have for each other. Sort of, it's Mrs. O'Dowd's duty to serve her husband, or that's how she feels. Mm-hmm. And it is Mr. O'Dowd's duty to do the same by his wife. And a lot of it's a very Victorian idea, the idea of sacred duty to other people. And that is what Becky and especially George sorely lack.
Yeah, and I think this episode does a good job of, I think what this show is really great at is arranging its characters in that way where you will sort of have one-to-one comparisons between characters and have them foil each other. And I think that this episode does that with Becky and George. Because both of them, like you're saying, Omens, just don't feel any sort of responsibility to care for any other person or do anything for another person. And also both of them, in contrast with the O'Dowds, are like surprised when the army has to go do a war.
Yeah, like, what did you guys think the army was?
Yeah, George has a moment where they're about to go and he's like, I didn't think this was going to happen, to be honest. And then Becky at the very last shot, when the cannons are going off, she has this look of, oh, Rodden could die. I didn't consider that. It's kind of funny, but yeah.
I think a lot of people are joining the military at this time for the money and for the clout and for the outfits and for the nationalism, right? And there's that moment where Mr. O'Dowd at the end, as they're going off to war, is like, here we are, boys, for crown and country. And they're like, huh? Wait. These are boys that are not fit for war, and it's not going to go well for some of them.
Yeah, and as Omen said last week, I think, also being an officer is like one of, am I right in this, Omens? It's like one of a handful of sort of proper things that a son can go into. So it's also just sort of like a class marker. Really?
Very much so. And an officer is a cushy job.
Right.
You're not an infantryman, which is part of the reason when General T, though?
Oh, it's like a name I would make up. It's not TiVo. It's like Tibdo or something. I'm going to look it up. But I know who you're talking about. The general, the shitty general. Sexist general. Yeah.
The shitty sexist one with the pockmarks.
Yes.
He knows what he's here for.
He has a cushy job.
He's the Duke of Wellington. It's a cushy job.
Yeah.
He's the one who's going to the opera all the time. He's the one who is able to be courted with really, really fine meals. It's cushy as hell.
Yeah, and it's like before oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, here's what I was going to mention. When when George walks into the room as Becky comes in that fabulous dress and she's talking to the Duke, George walks in and he's like, yo, and he starts cozying up to the Duke of Wellington. And the Duke just sort of looks at him and is like, you're an infantryman, please leave.
Yeah. A lot of classism in this episode. A lot of it.
You're not supposed to be at this table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
this is general.
Even like little things like that. They could be friends.
Yeah.
George, Mrs. Crawley, Becky, is Amelia's best friend, but because their situations in society are so different, George is not allowed to be in the room where it happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also, just another bit of like army classism. There's this moment where George he's pissed off for some reason, I think because of the money or whatever, and he's like he's harumphing his way through a little camp area and shoves a guy, and the guy's like, "Oh, sorry, sir," and salutes him.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
right.
yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
It goes all the way down.
Yeah, but I really think that's an interesting point about this being a cushy job, and they go to the opera, and I mean, it's
Go to
sort
the
of
dances and drink
it's
together.
a little vacation, right? Like we get to
Yes.
hobnob and dance and go see shows and stuff. It's
That gentleman, by the way, is General Tufto. Which definitely does sound like a joke character I would make up.
Tufto.
Hello, it's me, Tufto. Like,
yeah.
That's like my like sort of tiny tiefling character in Dungeons and Dragons. Tufto.
Tufto, who I love and respect dearly. We go to that opera scene, and I think part of the reason, Johnny, you're saying that George is angry is he kind of attempts to be Becky, like where he has power over people, and he tries to flirt with these women, and immediately they're like, do I know? They're basically the mean girls of this episode. They're just in the background to be like, why are poor people talking to us? Why are you allowed to be in the same room as us? Go the fuck away.
Yeah, they tear him apart because they're like, oh, that about your station. Oh, you're married. Okay, well, goodbye. Like already your stock with us is falling. And then Amelia walks up and they just leave. They don't even talk to her.
Ugh, gross.
George definitely, being married does not at all change anything about this guy. He was angling towards those ladies like he wanted to, get with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then he spends
dinner. He spends a ton of money on dinner with them.
Right. And
no
then
sense of duty towards Amelia at all.
No, not at all. And he spends the whole episode also now like he's in love with Becky or something and is trying to get with Becky.
Oh my God, we'll get there.
What did we think of that whole
Why, George Osborne? You have a perfectly good wife right there. She is literally too good for this world. Do you just want excitement? Do you just want stress for yourself?
Yeah, what is his attraction to Becky? Do we think?
I don't know.
What
He
is the
hated
thing?
her before. I don't know why this face turn is such a deal.
Yeah.
Big boobs. And I only say that. I'm not being
Okay, go
yucky. Because the general, when she walks up, is like, "Nice to meet you," and then he's like, "I've heard so much about you." And then what does he say? Your frontal assets, your famous frontal development.
Oh my God, I missed that line.
Gross. This general, because he knows he's not going to get into trouble, so he's just like, "Yeah, you have big boobs, and I think they're great. I love them."
Is that a war thing?
For nice tits.
Is that a war thing? Is like a frontal development, like a move your soldiers around or something?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God, that's gross. I think George. It's partly a looks thing, and I think it's a little bit of a status thing because it was in the previous episode where he meets Rodden he doesn't meet Rodden, he knows Rodden, but he sees for the first time Rodden and Becky together, and then he kind of like gives Rodden this advice of, oh, just so you know, she's sharp by name and sharp by nature, bud, so you might want to avoid all that. And what he's clearly doing is trying to get them separate from each other because he has a thing for Becky now because he
puts his hand on her thigh.
Yeah, she's dressed all fancy now, so he's like, okay, now I can like you.
I'm allowed to like you.
Yeah, but he just like pursues her so doggedly and shamelessly. And it's like, she's your wife's best friend, first of all. It's like, how do you think this is going to go? He deludes himself into thinking that there's a relationship there to the point where at the end of the episode, he writes her a letter like, hey, I know that you feel the same way that I do. I love you. Let's run away together. Waits by her window for her to run away with him, which she doesn't do. And yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just pathetic.
It's as if she took like a love potion and he fell in love with her. And it doesn't feel like it's that sudden, like it's overnight. I understand why he feels this attraction to her. It's because now she's of means and she's unattainable. And he seems like the kind of guy that just wants what he's not allowed to have.
Yeah.
But it all starts framing itself in that wonderfully shot opera scene where you have these like great guys at the bottom singing Italian and everybody's like staring at everyone else while listening to the opera. And like Amelia looks to Becky and she's like, Becky's in like the really nice section with all the soldiers and the locked door, and I'm like in the back on the other side of the balcony with a different view of everything else. And she's seeing the huge gap between them forming. And meanwhile, you have George who is like making eyes at Becky, and you're like, there's trouble in paradise here. Mm-hmm. I thought that scene was great just because it was like so many extras and it all looked really well done and like done. I don't know how much CG they used there, but yeah. Really impressive, like from a budget perspective. But
I think they rented out an actual art, like opera house for that.
That's awesome. Yeah. It definitely adds to the sense that like, oh, we're not in Child's Play anymore. Like we're of means now. Mm-hmm. And so the tension just ratchets the heck up. We're going to talk more about the George stuff here because the boys are playing cards. And at first I thought this was just harmless cards playing before later you realize that Rawdon is basically slowly swindling George out of his money, which is pretty effed up. It doesn't even feel like he needs to, but later Becky's like, yeah, you're allowed to keep doing that. And then when Amelia tells her to stop, it's like, well, your husband doesn't have to keep playing cards with my husband. He doesn't have to keep losing. Yeah. So there's stuff going on there, and Amelia's showing concern that Becky in Rawdon's room is next to the general. She's like, oh, do you guys feel safe over there? And then Becky's like, oh, you don't think that like my husband can take care of me? And she goes, I do find having to be charming all day and half of the night to be tiring. Which kind of lights the powder keg. And Becky goes, and speaking of literally lighting a powder keg, Becky lights a cigar for George in such an intimate, sexual way. And again, this is a scene where all the music does the work. And Amelia's just in the back like, oh, fuck. She knows what's happening now. She's like, Becky's playing the game.
Why is Becky doing that? Because she can? Why is she trying to seduce or sort of like string him along? Because at first I thought, is that what it is? Like she's just sort of just in case she can hop over to him or something?
No, not even. There's no way that like George and Emmy are going to be getting divorced.
Yeah.
But George has a little bit of ready cash right now, and he's very profligate. And
it's to keep him gambling with her husband.
And he's gambling with her husband, and Becky wants to take advantage of him and game Rawdon's opportunities because his gambling is what keeps her in pretty dresses.
Yeah. Isn't that effed up to really
really fucked up? That sucks. At first, I was giving Becky some benefit of the doubt, and I thought she was doing a thing where she was like, "Look, I'll prove to you that your husband is a shithead. I will like make him think that I like him, so you can see how bad he is," or something. But that wasn't what she was doing. It was.
We get a scene later where she's sitting with Rawdon in bed, and he's like, "Why do you keep talking to George? You notice he's making eyes at you." And she's like, "Well, it's gonna keep you guys playing games together, and that's what's getting us what we need."
I see.
Just so twisted. Oh boy,
that sucks.
And she wants to do this with all the other men as well. Her entire point is to be the most charming so that everyone wants to play cards with Rawdon. Mm-hmm. And she wants George Osborne at the back of the queue because she doesn't like him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she's willing to string him on because that's how she's playing this game.
Yeah, I remember there's some line where she also, I think to Amelia, at the end when Amelia's like super pissed at her, she's like, oh, I was trying to get him back for what he did to prevent me marrying Joss or whatever. So there's like a little revenge angle to it too.
She tells when she talks to Amelia, she's like, I did want to manipulate him because of that, but not such that I would sleep with him or actually betray you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe in the book, she's the one that, or George Osborne, like, seriously attempts to sleep with her, like comes to her room, and I'm not sure whether she doesn't want to betray Amelia in that way or if she actually does it. Mm-hmm. But I know that there's something else entirely that happens in the next episode.
Okay.
Make things change.
Yeah, it's get complicated.
A little bit. And we're sort of like, honestly, right now, George is just gonna do what he does, and
George is gonna George.
George is gonna George. Becky is gonna Becky, and things are we're slowly starting to see the cracks form.
Yeah.
Right.
And so the tension, let's just crank that tension meter up a little bit higher. He invites the Bear Acres, that's the rich family, to dinner, and they're super classist to him. He literally tells Emmy, why can't you be more like Becky? Like, just it stops caring about being subtle.
Shit, dude.
Rod and Becky are discussing how good she is at flirting, and they get some flowers, and she's like, oh, the general sent me flowers, and they look, and it's fucking George sending her flowers.
And Becky's reaction is obviously, it's fucking George.
Yeah. She's like, oh, okay, well, that's an interesting development for me. But we finally get a pause on all of this like anxious hell with the return of everybody's favorite boy. Joss is back. He's got an incredible mustache.
Oh my god, I was so happy to see Joss with that mustache.
He's dressed
and a gay
well.
valet named Isidore. He's Greek.
Yep.
He's beautiful. They're probably dating, but they're not talking about it. They're kind of talking about it. It's like, I was like, okay, this is cute subtext, whatever. We joked about like Joss being gay, but then they like make we'll talk about it. We'll get to the scene where they literally say the word gay and then they're like, huh? It's like,
Wait, what? Wait, what?
There's a scene later where somebody
like, huh?
somebody talks about like gay as in happy, and they're like, huh? They look at each other. It's great. And this is where I was just like, yeah, everybody just thinks that they deserve Becky. Everyone is like, I know she's manipulative, but I'm the one that's going to win this. Like, they all just have this delusion that they're going to somehow be the one to snatch her up for good.
And how is Becky so desirable, in fact?
I think it's because she's unattainable. I really do.
She's so heinous. And yet it's like, how do you think she's going to make a good wife? Like, I get that she's unattainable and she's independent and you want to, like, try and win that, but there's no point, and she's only going to make your life miserable.
Right. Yeah, it seems like there's some kind of masculine thing of like, yeah, she's running circles around all these other men, but not me.
Not me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it's that.
Yeah.
These men and their fragile egos.
Yeah. And now they all get to go to war and they're going to die, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
We get to the dance scene, which is, again, I think this is the sort of set piece of this episode. It's very sad. Amelia is fully distraught at this point. I think O'Dowd at one point is also like, he's like, oh, there's something intense, something incredible or bad is going to happen at this dance tonight, which is really that they're going to go off to war. Amelia's worried about how poor George is becoming. She's depressed. She's sitting in the corner. I wish we could like invite her to dance with us or be on the podcast or something, because Amelia just deserves so much better.
So much better.
She now realizes that he's actually losing money to Rodden. And Becky at one point is like, you can tell your husband to stop. You're allowed to take charge of your marriage, right? And then that is the moment where George is like, will you dance with me? And Amelia attempts to like assert any power here. And she's like, she knows he was looking at Becky, but she still addresses it like he's talking to her and goes, no, it's yours. You're the, what does she say? You go on. You are the dancer. And she's like, fine.
Well, it's even worse than that, because he comes up and he looks at Becky and he says, like, I need a partner for the waltz or something.
Yes.
And then Becky deflects
goes, go on, dance with your wife.
Deflects it to Amelia. And then he kind of has this look of like, oh, looks at her. And then she's like,
I meant her.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. Oh, George sucks.
Then Amelia again is very much like, oh no, you go, you're the dancer, you're infinitely better than me.
I've been here before, not literally, but this is why I like Amelia so much, is you can relate to being jealous and feeling completely out of control. A lot of this show is about people like realizing that control is slipping away from them, be it the parents or the teens or whatever. It's just people being like, why doesn't anything work for me? Why does it work for everyone else except me? And I think that's deeply relatable. That's the human element of Vanity Fair that works so well. And holds up over time. Of course, Dobbin takes the opportunity to slide in the DMs, and he's like, oh, there's a free seat here. What's going on, Amelia? How are you? I feel bad for you. She asks him to take her home, but in just the friendly, like, literally take me home way. The general interrupts this nice dance to tell them that Napoleon is marching on Brussels and the battle has begun. So we get everybody preparing for war. Rodden says goodbye to Amelia. or to Becky rather, and he's like, hopefully I'm leaving 2 people behind, and like touches her belly, and then she's like, ew, God, no, what? No. I don't want to be pregnant in this economy.
Yeah, right.
Screw that. And he says, I may live to vex you yet, woman. But George blows Becky a kiss through her window, which either she doesn't see or doesn't acknowledge. Which one do we think, and which one is worse?
Doesn't acknowledge is probably
Sees it but doesn't care.
Sees it and doesn't care, really.
Yeah.
The eye lines were a little confusing here because I don't think there's a moment where we see her look down into the square. Like she just is looking straight ahead.
Out. Yeah.
So yeah, it could be that she sort of knows he's there because doesn't he like throw a rock at her window or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe she
and he's
knows
drinking
he's there.
heavily. He shouts for her.
And she just sort of pretends that she doesn't see him. That's probably what it is. But I was a little confused by where she was looking.
I was really expecting him to just start shouting, Stella!
Or pull out a boombox and start playing music.
Yeah, right.
He sent her a letter that she finally reads where he's like, again, I loved you. I've always loved you more than anyone else does. Please be with me. I don't care about Amelia anymore. Like, stop, George. Stop, George. You're going to get in trouble, dude.
You wouldn't have been able to get a divorce if you tried.
You can't even do that.
Now.
Why are you like this? You're going to war, George.
The only time people were able to get a divorce in Regency society was in cases of adultery, but the woman had to have proof.
Yes. So he's screwed.
He's screwed.
Which, like we said, probably going to go somewhere bad. Dobbin comes up to him to George in his drunken stupor, and he's like, buddy, there's a war in like 3 hours. We're going to war, and you're worried about like this girl, and like, do you think you're? He's like, I didn't think the war was going to actually happen. We have to fight. And Dobbin's like, yes, what did we train for years? Those pool games were in a training facility. You know that, right? I thought we just played pool and bet money on it and flirted with girls. I love Dobbin here. He's the friend you need sometimes. I've had a friend slap me when I was drunk before, and that's Dobbin here where he's like, buddy,
right, exactly.
Get your shit together. I'm begging you, actually.
Exactly.
And then everyone just starts saying goodbye. The O'Dowds actually share a sincere, tender goodbye, and you're like, damn, I wish that were me. George tells Amelia, this is the shittiest thing ever. George tells Amelia he doesn't deserve her. This is the moment, folks, that Alan cried in this episode. He says, I don't deserve you, which is a fucking lie. I mean, you don't deserve her, but you don't think that. And then she says, I just want you to hold me. Because she knows that this marriage is falling apart, and she knows this guy's probably either going to die or continue to sleep around or whatever. And this is her last moment to have anything. So again, asserting control. Please hold me. And they're sitting on the bed or whatever, and she hugs him, and she's just weeping. The actress playing Amelia is amazing here. This is the part that got me, guys. It was...
Yeah, I nearly cried as well, just because he's such an asshole.
It
sucks. She needs him so much, and he's just failing to recognize that. Like, you horrible, horrible human being.
Yeah.
The fact that they Yeah.
No, it's coming straight after a moment where he was literally outside of her best friend's window, like, please run away with me. And then Dobbin says, hey, dude, we're about to go die in like 3 hours. And then all of a sudden he says, oh, okay, I'm going to go talk to my wife.
I thought he was going to go talk to Becky at first, because he opens the door and someone's sleeping, and I was like, please don't tell me that's Becky, and he's going to like go in the room and kiss her or something.
Right.
And it's worse. But sorry,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it Emmy sleeping and then George spikes the camera in the mirror? And is kind of like smirking a little bit.
Really?
And I'm like, okay, is he going to go see Becky? Is this an indication that he does have sex with Becky? But I don't think so. I think
I didn't notice that.
He just like tries to either wake her up or just falls asleep, and there's the next morning.
I was unclear on that, because again, I thought it was framed like it was Becky's bedroom, and I think you're supposed to be a little worried about that. They don't want to make it abundantly obvious, but yeah, it's that he ends up going to Amelia's bedroom. And what's so sad, this is the last twist of the knife here, is Dobbin is telling Joss, hey, George might not make it. She's not going to have much people left in the world after this. Please take care of your sister. Like, please beware and be her companion for the rest of her time here, at least. And they walk. Amelia and George walk out, and she's crying, and someone's like, "Oh, someone get her. She's gonna faint." He's like, "Oh, someone go take care of her," and just like walks off like completely callously, like, "Oh, she's gonna need help, guys. You guys got it, right?" Doesn't care about his damn
Leaves
wife.
Joss in the room and is like, "Yo, you got this, buddy, right?" Like he hasn't seen his sister in like a year and a half.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Joss, take care of it." Thanks, Pat. I'm gonna go die.
Take care
good
of her.
here, dude?
For the rest of the time she's in Brussels, you can have no more fun. You're essentially her companion now.
Yeah.
It's brutal. And what's so funny, the comedic moment next is that it's implied that Becky has been asleep for all of this intense like crying and drama. She wakes up, she opens the curtains, and she's like, "Oh shit. Oh, the war's happening. Oh, neat. All right." Anyways, back to sleep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then she goes into, should we talk about the scene where she talks to Amelia?
Just the last thing right before that was the Joss and Isidore being cute with each other, and she also reminds him like, "Joss, please be good to your sister." And then she spikes the lens again, and then we get the moment. This is the powder keg finally exploding, Majan. So go ahead.
Oh, Becky looks into camera and she talks to Joss. You're saying, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and that's another moment of what's she doing there? She's keeping him in her back pocket for some reason.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, so she goes and talks to Amelia, and Amelia, this is the moment where Amelia is at the height of her power, I would say.
Yeah.
Where she sees Becky and she says, "What are you doing here? I don't want to talk to you." And Amelia has this great line where, to the point that you were just making about Becky just sort of sleeping through everybody leaving for war, Amelia says, if you really loved your husband, you would be crying right now because he's going to war. So everything about you is fake, and I hate you, and I don't trust you. And yeah, I thought this was a really great scene.
She's the one person that can make Becky crack also. This is really Becky on the back foot for once. Did I ever do you anything but kindness, as we cut to not one, not two, but 3 mirrors showing Becky like, wait, you did show me kindness. Was I not a sister to you? You were. Like, oh God. It's the Arrested Development like I've made a terrible mistake moment.
Yeah, I think Becky's starting to see like this episode is really the story of Becky having fun with other people's emotions and just sort of toying with the people around her and doing whatever she feels like. And then at the end here is where she starts to see the consequences of that. So maybe this is the seed of a change that she's going to undergo over the next couple episodes.
I definitely think so.
That's why I really liked this scene for that reason.
I loved Amelia yelling at her not to sit on the bed because she says, "We sat there, my husband and I.
Yeah. Yeah.
We promised each other that we'd be committed." And she's like, "Yeah." But this is funny because earlier Becky's like at the dance, she's like, "Oh, all those words are fake. We say those in church. We don't mean those." Amelia's like, "That's literally all I have. If those words are fake, then this marriage is fake." And she has that sort of crisis of conscience here.
Right.
And she says, "I cannot bear the sight of you." And then, because the show likes to be funny every once in a while, as Becky walks out, we see Joss in the corner with his mouth agape, eating, I think, an onion. And he's just like, "Oh, I'm going to eat this onion now."
Was he in the room the whole time? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think so. I think he heard all of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Because the door's open.
That's funny.
It's
Joss.
very, very, very good. And then, Mrs. O'Dowd is talking to Becky, and she's like, "Oh, war is happening, right? Your friend doesn't like you." And then we turn, and cannons have begun, and the Battle of Waterloo is happening. That's the Battle of Waterloo, right, Omens?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a bad composite shot of them looking at Belgium, but the cannons are firing. There's a Belgian guy who's like, oh, he does the throat cut motion to Becky. And it's just her looking out and truly realizing that war is here, and all of this sort of affairs of men and women are nothing compared to actual conflict.
Yeah.
And this is scored by what else but Kate Bush. Kate Bush is running up the hill. Oh, and I know you are also a fellow fan of Kate Bush. How did you feel about this choice of music?
Yeah, I texted you, I texted Alan before the episode started, and I was just like, okay, when I first heard it, or you warned me about this.
Yeah, I was like, there's a big musical play at the end that you're going to like.
Yeah, and I'm like, when I first heard it, I'm like, okay, fine. If we have to pick a song for this, then I guess. It doesn't make any narrative or thematic sense, but I guess. And also, why didn't they use the Meg Myers version?
Yeah, there's better versions of the song that are more resonant.
It's not that the Kate Bush version, the original version, is the best version, but they already used a dumb cover version of All Along the Watchtower.
Clearly they don't care.
Probably use the moodier cover of Running Up That Hill as well.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, make this go away, please.
Yeah. It's a weird choice.
It.
I'm just ready for it now that we're 4 episodes into the series. I'm like, yeah, end it on a dumb pop culture pull. End it on a modern song. I don't care. Do it. I'm ready to be impressed by it. But yeah, I thought that was a fun choice. So I guess, Omens, you know where a lot of this is going. So then, Magellan, where do you think the war is going to take our what does it say? What is it? Our cast, our friends, all the friends?
Well,
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
what? Yeah, one of our boys is gonna die for sure. It's got to be either Dobbin or George. I haven't quite figured out which one, but one of those two is gonna die. And then I don't know. Something else is gonna happen with this Becky stuff. She's gonna, I think, continue to sabotage the relationships that she has before she either turns it around or is left alone. So, yeah. I don't know, Alan, what do you think?
I agree somebody's going to die. I think it's more thematically fun if George dies. But I don't know where that puts the story then, because getting rid of him is like, kind of makes the story end too cleanly. Because then it's just okay, Dobbin gets with Amelia. That's simple. And they find means together. He's a hard worker. And Becky stays with, with Rodden. And that seems too clean. So I'm like...
Again, there are third and fourth options that you are not considering.
Oh my God.
And that makes me very happy. Because, like, I don't necessarily know where this is coming. I know, like, the very, very basic end plot. But the summary is really vague. And I didn't actually finish the book.
Yeah.
So there are many roads that Becky takes, and in the summaries for the next couple episodes, there might be spoilers as to which ones they are. So please be warned.
Yeah, I always don't read the Amazon summaries before. I know Magellan reads them here at the end, but I don't. I just kind of tune out during this part.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And this Becky Sharp is just gonna keep doing the unexpected.
Yeah.
Becky's gonna Becky.
Mm-hmm.
And George or Dobbin or whoever, somebody's gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
And but after that, there's
hope and optimism and fun.
Hope and optimism a little bit.
Okay.
And then there's like an entirely different heel face turn that I'm not even sure how it happens anymore.
All right. These are good things you're saying. Okay. Well, I think that's what we have. Almost. Do you have any spare notes?
Not really.
Oh yeah. Can I get your outfit minute? Can I get the outfit minute?
Oh yes,
Awesome
the
corner?
outfit minute. Yes. Okay.
Omens, costume, corner.
So, in this one, we have the same purple police as last episode.
Mm-hmm.
The really fantastic red dress, and then a blue silk dress. She is not wearing white in any of these scenes. She is either in blue, in red, or in purple. And again, she's wearing the bright, like really rich colors, while Amelia is still dressed in pastels. That's not necessarily historically accurate, but I like that they try and keep the underdresses under the pelisses a little bit of a lighter color, because that is contemporary. Mostly women would be wearing pastels. And the different jackets and outerwear would be the more colorful pieces. But let's talk about the dress, because that was based on a pineapple cloth dress from, I believe, the late 1810s, early 1820s. I'm going to throw it in the chat real quick, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful gown.
You're referring to the dress that she wears at the dance?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The fuchsia one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the period example that was the the inspiration for this dress. And
Hers is way chestier than this one.
Yes. And it would not have been that chesty it's evening, so it would have been that chesty. But it's definitely a little bit more off the shoulder than, say, this one.
I'll put these in the show notes, of course, for people.
Yeah, and it's also, Olivia Cooke is just really well endowed, and that look would have forced the stays that she's wearing, the sort of proto corset, would have forced her boobs up and out.
Oh.
So even if you're not super busty, you would still look like you're popping out of your dress most of the time.
It's
and that changes with the introduction of the Victorian corset in the 1840s. But such famous frontal development.
It's funny. It's just I don't think about it usually. Like, I don't see Becky and I'm like, dang, frontal development. I just, that dress, like the outfit can really highlight things like that.
Yes.
I really wanted to shout out Joss's outfit. I thought his sort of light blue getup was really wonderful when we meet him again. And the mustache helps, even though I believe it's either Dobbin or George who tells him, like, dude, you gotta shave the mustache. It's only for international soldiers. You don't get to wear that. Get that mustache off your face.
Yeah, and he looks like a French guy, essentially. He looks like a continental soldier in that blue jacket and that very Frenchified mustache. And that could very well get him uninvited to a bunch of parties. And I almost feel like Joss is being almost just as tactless as Becky or George here in the way that he deals with being in Brussels and kind of not really understanding that there is a war on. But I like his outfit there. It's a good time. His coat is a beautifully tailored garment. And I love his little bicorn hat. It's so cute. He makes a lovely little general in his little bicorn hat. But it's very outdated for him.
He looks like he's playing in his dad's clothes drawer or something.
Very much so.
Magellan, can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you tell me what episodes we're watching next time on Vanity Chats?
I would love to. So next time on Vanity Chats, we're watching the next 2 episodes of Vanity Fair. The first is episode 5, in which battles are won and lost. As the Battle of Waterloo begins, Becky decides the war isn't so bad, so long as there's money to be made.
Oh, get him.
Interesting. Okay. And then episode 6, in which a painter's daughter meets a king. Becky works out how to live well on little, but flies too high as she joins the dizzy ranks of lords, ladies, and kings.
Whoa.
And I gotta tell you, the preview image of episode 6 is a picture of Anthony Stewart Head.
Yes.
So,
Giles is here.
I want Anthony Stewart Head as King William so bad.
Is that?
But I don't know where he is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that, but I think he might be like a lord or something. He looks great. He looks fantastic.
I love Anthony Stewart Head
so powerful. So powerful.
So powerful. Well, Magellan, thank you for that. And I think that can bring us into our closing here. Do you want me to do the plug zone?
Sure.
If you would like to email us questions, comments, concerns, recommendations, what have you, our email address is chatspod@gmail.com. All instances of chatspod are ChatZPod. We have a Twitter @chatspod where we post clips from the episodes as well as discussions. We have a subreddit that's run by our community. It's reddit.com/r/chatspod where they're re-listening to old episodes of Chats. We're currently running through Freaks Chats right now where we watch Freaks and Geeks, and I've been listening along and having a very good time. I feel like that's where our podcast really we hit our creative stride and started doing a lot more different things with how we talked about the episodes. Because as far as we kind of just found our formula and had a great time with it. But we also would encourage you, the listener, to rate us on your podcast platform of choice: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever. We're on all of on the platforms. And if you'd like to support us financially, we highly encourage you to do so over at patreon.com/chatspod. You can support us at any number of different tiers. We have a $1, a $3, and a $5 tier, so I guess the any number is 3. We have Solo Magellan watching the X-Files as the Chats files over there. We have Chats Nights. We have commentary chats. We have pilot chats where we pilot TV shows, including Vanity Fair. So you can find out what shows we're going to watch next for chats. I've been told it's a great value add. We have a lot of fun doing it. We hang out. People vote on what they want us to do and watch. We did a commentary on Tron Legacy over there recently. And that was streamed live.
Not that recently.
Not that recent. Oh, is that out yet?
Well, this is coming out in April.
Oh,
what we're doing right now.
Oh, sorry, I forgot how time works.
In January we did that. Yeah,
back in January of this year we did Tron Legacy in our Patreon exclusive Discord, which the link to that is on the Patreon. If you're a patron, and you want to join us and hang out and talk about TV and media in a Discord, and occasionally watch cool shows with us, you can do so by checking out patreon.com/chatspod. Our final segment is, instead of personal plugs, we like to do these things called chat sims, where we recommend media, ideas, things to do, experience, what have you. And each of us brings at least one to the board every week. So, Omens, can you start with your chat sim for this week?
My chat sim for this week is Louisa May Alcott's 8-chapter hospital sketches, which is her account, semi-fictionalized, of her time as a nurse in the Civil War. It is uproariously funny, even with all the death. And she is just, and has been always, just an absolute joy of a writer. So I've been going over a lot of her work recently and picking up little idiosyncrasies in her writing and how she handles people. And it's really, really beautiful.
Is there a formal name for that for people to search?
It's called Hospital Sketches.
Hospital Sketches, gotcha. Oh, that's okay, perfect. I love Louisa May Alcott. I love Little Women. That was her, right? Please tell me that was her.
Yeah, that was her. It's her. It's my least favorite book of hers, honestly.
Oh shit.
I love it to death, but Hospital Sketches is by far my favorite. Little Men, which is the sequel to Little Women, is also really good.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Great. You know what? Great. I love it. I'm gonna check that out. Actually, it's going straight to the Amazon wishlist.
I'll send you the Kindle link to her complete works. They're $1.99 on Amazon.
Oh shoot. I love reading old writers. It saves so much money. Marjorie, do you have a chat sim for this week?
Yeah, I do. I have 2 chat sims, I would say. I have 3 kind of. So the first is the latest YouTube rabbit hole that I've fallen down is I just keep getting recommended videos where people have taken verses from rap songs and annotated them for the rhyme scheme.
Yeah.
And that's fun. You should just look some of those up. I mean, try to see if your favorite song, it's cool. And it's also a nice way to discover new songs and stuff. But what ended up happening as a result of that being of that populating my YouTube feed was that I got but I became very curious about the career of Eminem. And so I've been listening to Eminem's albums, and the Eminem show is really good. I mean, there's a lot of shitty stuff in his songs, like homophobia and transphobia and misogyny, and it's there. And if you don't want to listen to those things, don't do it. But also he's a pretty talented guy. and that album's really good. So that, and then my last chatsum. Right now, we are releasing Sunset Chats, and I decided to finally watch the film, the film Network, to see if Aaron Sorkin got it right. And he didn't get it right. It has so much more to say than Studio 60 or The Newsroom or anything. It is a fascinating film. And if you haven't seen Network and it's been on that list of like, everybody keeps telling me to watch this and I haven't watched it yet, let me be yet another person to tell you that it's good and you should watch it.
Yeah, I'm really glad I got to watch Network a couple of years ago, and I'm definitely due for a rewatch. It is it's a little slow. I think that's part of the reason that some people struggle with like older movies, but it's got a lot going on. Like it's freaking fire all the way through. And it's from the 70s, so they're way more open about like their political views. They're not trying to like hide what it's actually about. And
there's a whole plot line in it about like about these like radical communists and stuff, and the network decide like Faye Dunaway's character decides to put like a radical communist show on the network. It turns all these communists into there's a whole scene where all the communists argue about like their contracts and stuff. And it's like, oh my God, this is good. This is commentary right here. So yeah.
Fabulous movie. I have two short chatsums and one that I really want to shout out. I briefly want to talk about how great those sea shanty TikToks that have been blowing up lately are. Just look up sea shanty TikToks on YouTube. People have made like mashups of all the best ones. They will get stuck in your head. Sea shanties are great. The performances are great. Everyone performing them it's just so fun. And sea shanties, as we were talking about before the podcast, are really cool because some of them are like societal commentary. The one that's really popular is the classic like, we're on a ship and we don't know when we're going to get off, but it's like the endless journey sea shanty, which is a very common type of one of those. And it's just a lot of fun. I don't know. Sometimes I check in on TikTok and I'm like, oh, the kids might be all right. I finished a video game this week, or last night actually. I finished Lithium City, which is an independent game, I think on Steam and maybe on Switch perhaps. It's like $5. It's basically to Cyberpunk. You're playing as a cool lady, you have abilities, and each level kind of functions as a combat puzzle. Like there's guys with guns and they can kill you in one shot, but you can teleport around. So how do you beat them? And it gets your brain in a really cool cerebral space that I enjoyed a lot. And it's short, which is a huge, huge plus for me. It took me about an hour to get through, even though I am very bad at it and died on the last room for probably 30 straight minutes. So, but check out Lithium City if that sounds appealing to you. I'd suggest watching like gameplay of it because it's a little intense in the back half of it, but I thought it was worth my time. And finally, this is a weird chatsum, but I follow a lot of TV critics on Twitter because I know Magellan and I, we consider ourselves, budding TV critics, and we want to do this more professionally. So it's nice to see people who are doing it. And one of my favorites has always been Alan Sepinwall, who did a lot of great commentary and criticism about Lost back in the day. That's what I'm Mad Men, which is what I know him for. And Alan Sepinwall started a new podcast called Too Long Didn't Watch. And Magellan, this podcast is basically an amalgam of every like attempted show we've ever tried to do into one. It's kind of unfair that it just exists, but I'm happy it exists. Get this. Okay. He brings on guests. They're always celebrities. So far, he's had John Hamm and Alison Brie on. They sit down together as friends over the internet and watch the pilot of a show and the last episode of the show.
God damn it.
Come on. We've literally like conceived, not with celebrities, but we're like, wouldn't it be fun if you had a friend on and just like made them watch the first and last? Like, we wrote this. And he just did it.
Oh, it sounds so good. I'm downloading both of those episodes right now.
It's very well produced. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's very tightly produced too. It's got like some weird ad sponsored segments. Like there's a part where he does trivia that he asks his Google Home because it's sponsored by Google Home, and I'm like, shut up. But
my God, Charlie and I literally did never mind.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. No, it's just they also record them watching the show and then put the highlights of them while they're watching the pilot and while they're watching the finale. So you get a little bit of John Hamm watching the pilot of
you, Alan Sepinwall!
Damn you, Alan! And it's me being like, every time John Hamm's like, now, Alan, I'm glad you asked that. And I'm like, yay! So it's fun for me in that way. But he got John Hamm on so far to watch Gossip Girl, which is bananas. And he got Alison Brie to watch the beginning and end of Game of Thrones, which both of them, the whole thing is that the people haven't seen the show. And in the preview, he also talks about I think he got like Kumail Nanjiani on to watch some like long mystery show, and he was like, yeah, he came up with all these theories in the pilot and they were all wrong. And Alison Brie being like, I think this character is going to be king. And then in the finale, she's like, oh, he died.
Oh, he died 3 seasons ago.
Yeah. It's amazing, honestly. If for what it is, it's just such a strong premise. I listen to it as long as they put out episodes. That's called Too Long Didn't Watch. But that's what I got, folks. Thank you, as always, to Omens, as well as Magellan, for being the 2 rocks to my 1 hard place. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Vanity Chats. Stay sharp.